Hey
Hello,
everybody,
good
welcome to
morning.
Nerdarchy. This is Nerdarchist Ted. We're doing our typical live chat. Dave is en route, or probably already at Think Geek, so I got to fill in for him today. We're going to be talking to the wonderful people of Fantasy Ground College. So I'm going to pass it over to you guys, allow you to introduce yourselves, or introduce each other as you would, and let's get into this.
Okay, let's see. I am the founder. My name is Layroon on the Discord server. I have a great group of team members here assembled to help answer questions and also share their personal experiences. And I would also like to say that we will be giving out handouts at the end to give people information more about the college. And I will tie in with people after the chat. But for right now, I'm going to introduce my staff and allow them to present themselves in any which way or form they wish. So for myself, I was the founder. I am also like a kind of like a team community member, one of those things. I am not the boss. I am basically part of a big team. So anyways, for the record, I have about 5 or 6 of us. Hopefully it represents most of the demographics that we have for the staff. We do have a student here as well. So first, I would like to introduce Bubba. He is our expert, our Mac guy, and a D&D aficionado. Take it away, Bubba.
Yeah, so first off, I want to disagree. He says he's not the boss, but everybody goes to him for answers. So, go figure. I've been playing forever since before I want to confess to alive. I'm a teacher. I do basic. I like to teach people how to play D&D. I tell them about how the game was invented, how its evolution is kind of going on, and we talk about how Fantasy Grounds works and how the Fantasy Grounds sort of is built around the concept of D&D and the rule set. And as you know, Fantasy Grounds isn't related just to D&D. It'll work with Pathfinder, Starfinder, I think the Call of Cthulhu. There's a whole bunch of rule sets that it works with. So it's a really great tool. And even though I'm not affiliated with them and we're not affiliated with them, we do believe in it strongly. And so I guess, Colin, you want to go next?
Yeah. So yeah, my name's Colin. I'm one of the teachers over there at Fantasy Grounds College. Kind of the head of curriculum, that kind of thing. I do a lot of the I build a lot of the classes that we teach. We teach Character Creation 101, Combat 101, Exploration 101. We're working on 102 classes now, since we've got some students who are have progressed a little bit farther. We just started doing Dungeon Master classes because some people, they've just started using Fantasy Grounds, and maybe they've DM'd, tabletop, but it's a little bit different when you're using a virtual tabletop. So we've got a workshop for that kind of thing. And yeah, and I run a lot of classes. I run usually, I had to take a break at one point because I ran so many that I burned my voice out and ended up giving myself laryngitis. I was doing like 3 classes a day for like about a month. And it was just really, really fun. It's like, because we're all volunteers, right? It's just, community people helping other community people. So meeting people from all over the world and that kind of thing was just really fun. And teaching D&D 5e is kind of our bread and butter. It's like Dragon was mentioning, Bubba was mentioning, Fantasy Grounds, you can use it for Fate Core, you can use it for Call of Cthulhu, you can use it for Savage Worlds, whatever. But D&D,
the chat is actually, the chat's actually ringing with a bunch of your guys, fans and supporters, and they're already talking about the different systems that it's actually supporting there. So
right, yeah. So yeah,
it's good to see the support.
Yeah, exactly. But D&D is the most popular, right? So by far. So because the Fantasy Grounds has rules, different rule sets, and the D&D one is very polished. So we like to teach people with that because things typically work. So that's what I do. Teach people how to play D&D and other games using Fantasy Grounds. And also we have Vishera here. He is in charge of a lot of our art and website stuff. So I'll hand it over to him.
How's it going? I'm Vishira on the Discord server, and I handle a lot of the graphics and art, creating all the maps for the curriculum, situational maps and such. And I also handle all the website information as far as designing the website, putting in the information about how all the classes run, how to join the classes. We have our class schedule up there so that students can see like what classes are going on. We even have information on our upcoming West Marches style campaign called the Explorers Guild. So there's a lot of good information over there. It's only been up for about a month or so, and we've already hit over 1,500 views in just a month. So starting to pick up some speed, and yeah, that's pretty much my job here with the college.
I guess I'm next. I go by Mars Whip on the Discord and here on YouTube. For the most part, current Discord membership has broken 460. There's, I guess, well, I'm spacing on things. Sorry.
It's okay,
It's right.
Mars.
It's probably still early for you.
Yeah, right.
Well,
So yeah, so
not,
right now, the last time I looked, we had over 400 people, students on Discord, right? Is that correct, Mars?
yeah, we're over 460 right now.
460 now. Wow, nice.
And he's
Now,
also
is that? Go ahead.
oh, he's also checking the channels and making sure everything's right and moderating all the areas so they're set up correctly, that sort of thing.
That kind of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so he's the guy we go to when things don't work for us on Discord, and we go, "Hey, fix it." I think he's very responsive. So,
And Mars Whip
Right.
is very smart. He just sometimes he gets lost for words, and I think he's having a little bit of stage fright, like some of us here. So it's okay.
So why don't we go to Fury here? She's one of our students, and
yeah.
can give you the background information about how terrible we all are.
Not all that bad. Actually, I found you guys through the Fancy Grounds community forums, and I had bought Fancy Grounds a couple years ago. I didn't have any friends to play with. It was like, I want to play with people, and I'm tired of, my actual games getting canceled. And I thought, playing online, people are always there. You don't need pants to play online. And that's, always a fun thing. So, I found Leroon, went to his Sunday class to learn how to make a decent character and put things together on the character sheet. And then from there, he's like, hey, I need more girls to play in my game. Come play with me. I'm like, sure. I have nothing else to do. And so now I'm become the voice of all the girls for Fantasy Ground. That's what Leroon keeps saying. Hey,
Fantasy Grounds College, yeah.
Yeah, for Fantasy Ground College. So Leroon's always pulling me to do things and to talk to people and play games. I'm like, I guess I have nothing else to do. And so now we're doing a whole seminar, webinar of women in gaming for hosted by Fantasy Grounds College. The very famous Susie Q is going to be moderating. She comes from GeoQuest Gaming. And it's definitely going to be something kind of fun and girly to talk about. How women feel about gaming with guys, how guys feel about gaming with girls, and probably going to be lots of pillow talk and pajama fights and who knows, hair pulling.
So when is that webinar supposed to take place?
Oh, duh. It's going to be this Sunday, 12:30 Pacific time.
No,
Eastern
time.
12:30 Eastern time. Thank you. So yeah,
Okay.
Wake up and have breakfast with us or brunch with us.
Second breakfast. Second breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right
That's what we're going with.
Wouldn't that be somewhere between lunch and an afternoon tea? Second breakfast, I thought was like 11.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
well, it's
third
Twinkies
breakfast.
for Twinkies for the guys in Europe, right?
Right.
Yep. So that kind of segues into the international bit. So, and when we first started, it was just basically a U.S. thing. And we also had my co-founder, Patty. I will never forget him. He had to step back for real life situations. He's still a part of us, but he's just not doing the role anymore. But he actually helped get this off the ground. He got his own students, and we combined our servers, and it got bigger and bigger. And we started recruiting people from all over the world. We now have people teaching in Europe, and I think it's a wonderful thing. And as a matter of fact, our teacher, Colin, is based in Japan, so I will defer to him.
Yeah, so it's what is it now? It's 1:11 in the morning here now. I had to stay up for this. So I'm a little bit tired. But
well, thank you
yeah,
for doing so. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. It's fantastic, actually. I love talking about D&D and Fantasy Grounds and Fantasy Grounds College and stuff. So that's all good. I would have stayed up for it no matter what. But yeah, I'm in Japan, and we've got some players and students in Australia. It's kind of funny because over the last several months that I've been doing this, I didn't meet anybody else from Japan, and then just over this last week, I met a guy playing from Hokkaido and another guy playing from Okinawa, just like the last 2 days before today. So that it was just really fantastic. It's like, wow, that's so weird, like I realized one of these guys was in the same time zone as me, or just was close to the same time zone as me, and I figured, oh, he's probably Australian. And then because we do get a lot of Aussies, and I tend to take care of those people because I'm in a similar time zone to them. And he hopped in. He sounded Spanish, and I was like, "What? You don't sound Australian." And he said, "What do you mean Australian? I'm in Hokkaido." And it's just like, "Oh wow, that's really nice." So yeah, and we've got teachers in Sweden, I think, and Greece, if I'm not mistaken, and I think one in Russia actually. But because Fantasy Grounds allows people to play from anywhere in the world. And that's one of the wonderful things about all the virtual tabletops, and I think that Fantasy Grounds is definitely the best one. So having a staff, a teaching staff that can cover all the different time zones was really important to us when we first started building the Fantasy Grounds College. Layroom spent a lot of time and a lot of energy recruiting people from Europe and from the UK and me in Japan, in order to make sure that no matter what time that somebody logged in, there would be somebody available. And we're still doing that. We've gotten 400, like I think Mars was saying, we got 460 people now. And really it started blowing up about 2, maybe 3 months ago. So we've had some growing pains. I think sometimes we can't do as many classes as we would like. If I was going to say that if I had one complaint, it would be that I have a real job. So I can't just teach people how to play D&D all day long, which would be so awesome if I could do that.
Can I get a witness?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, and then in fact,
Amen.
Dragon here, he was one of our experts for a long time. He spent a lot of time in the chat room, just answering chat questions, because people have really specific questions about the rules of 5e. I think one of the ones that came up the other day was can you use Divine Smite and while you're raging for a barbarian rage, right? And this is like a paladin ability and a barbarian ability, and you can't cast spells while you rage, but you do use spell slots for Divine Smite, even though it's not a spell. So can you do it? And the answer is yes, you can. You can totally do that. But somebody new to 5e might not know and might need to know, and those are the kinds of questions that Dragon would answer. And then we finally pulled him in. He tried to get out, but we kept pulling him back in, and now he's teaching classes for us, which is awesome.
It took me a long time before I even accepted the role of an expert on the college. I was like, no, I'll just be over here in the corner, and they're like, no,
you're so good.
If you're going to step out and actually, answer questions and put a face to, hey, I'm here, I'm doing this thing, then take whatever laurels, take whatever qualifiers somebody wants to put on you. Kind of the way things works.
Yeah, you can have all the laurels, man. You deserve them. I started in '83, and I think Layroon started right at the beginning of the '80s as well. But I think Dragon he tops us all. He's got the old school knowledge. Yeah, you probably started playing when it was chainmail, didn't you?
I did. I remember chainmail, the Arduin Grimoire. Yeah, the chainmail supplement for fantasy war or for war game tabletop. Yeah, tabletop war games.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm old.
Cool.
You got me beat by quite a bit. You know, I think you know, when we were talking off air, the year you started, I think was the year I was born. So.
Nice.
So
Nice.
technically, the year I started was the year I was born as well, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. We all
Awesome.
came into ourselves, you know, when we found D&D. You know, and it's actually, this is kind of off the topic of the college a little bit, but you know, there's been a big resurgence in interest in Dungeons and Dragons. There's a lot of different, you know, potential causes for this. You know, the what's it called? The Netflix show Stranger Things brought it into the, you know, the public awareness pretty big just the last couple of years.
E.T.
The yeah, and also there's been this big board game revolution over the last 10 years, right? Like the Euro games, big, you know, have come in, and you know,
I think it goes even further than that. I mean,
Mhm.
if we look at the success of the Lord of the Rings movies, the Game of Thrones
Absolutely.
TV show, like
Definitely,
all
yeah.
of that, it's opening an awareness to the concept of fantasy. And when people want to get more and have more exposure, any research is going, you know, you look up fantasy and it's going to point towards D&D or, you know, role playing in and of itself. I mean, there's, you know, the split years ago between the, you know, the third edition, fourth edition Pathfinder, you know, groupings, and of course, you know, the D&D loyalists that just stick with whatever the current edition is. So that's going to push
Right.
things, you know, in separate. And as those groups go in their own directions, they're going to foster more of their own people, and they're going to share. And each niche, each of that section is going to pull in more people as more and more people get exposed to what this is through the greater media of books, movies, and TV.
Yeah, and all of those different disparate elements always kind of funnel back into, let's play some D&D.
Also, if you look
You
at
know.
all of the video games the MMOs that have come out, all of the Warcraft, the Ultima, Guild Wars, all of those, they have regular servers, and then they also have the RP server where people get on and they RP. So, like, my youngest son has just recently decided to step up into D&D, and he did so because he didn't feel like he was quite satisfied with the RP element of World of Warcraft. I mean, it was fun for him, but the whole resolving conflict and combat and yada yada, there's no mechanics for it in the game. So we switched to actually a role-playing game and stepped into the theater of the mind, and he's actually quite good. I dare say he's a better DM than I am.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. And just last week, there was an article in the New Yorker magazine about this
Yes, there
resurgence
was.
of Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, it's been making the rounds, right, on the different sites, because it's like even something as mainstream as that has started to notice this new, you know, like this new D&D paradigm, and they're throwing all these big words around, but basically it comes down to people sitting down and playing some D&D and having really good time doing it.
Well, I always throw out the most basic thing when it comes to any role playing game. We're playing make believe with rules. It's really what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know, and when you can, you know, take it down or, you know, boil it down to just that basic concept, it seems almost ludicrous, and yet, you know, how many people love doing it? How many people, you know, spend hours and hours, you know, getting into it? So clearly, it's not that bad. If you know, or you know, it can't be as bad as that sounds. But realistically, when you try to explain it to somebody who has no clue, that's what I have to take it to.
Right on.
Hey, are we toddlers? You know.
Another thing that I've noticed is with the resurgence of tabletop and everything kind of coming back, a lot of the people that you know might have played back in the day or whatever, they're more closet nerds. They didn't want to tell anyone like, hey, I play Dungeons and Dragons, you know, because generally it was kind of frowned upon and made fun of. But now people are, you know, are more open about it. Be like, oh, I used to play D&D, or I still play D&D, and it's becoming more involved with everyone because they're like, oh,
And
this
now they're
person
the
plays.
popular kids.
Yeah, and like the popular kids are playing it, so now everyone wants to play, and it's a good thing. I mean, D&D is fun.
is.
It's a great way to escape anything. I mean, look at actors and stuff. They play D&D, even though they work in a creative field all the time. They use it to escape that. So I mean, it's great.
Yep.
So,
Well,
You know.
So speaking,
Dave here at Nerdarchy, he was a closet nerd for a long time, and he shared this on the channel. So I'm not doing any great reveal, but it's I've known plenty of people who they would hide their gaming stuff or hide their dice when they're going to a friend's house because they don't want somebody seeing it on their bike or in their car or whatever have you. Now I've always been the what, if I'm into something, I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. This is what I do, and I never was ashamed of it or felt the need to hide it. So.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I was such a freak anyway that people knowing I played D&D wasn't going to change much. So I just was open about it because it's like, hey, look, I'm such a weirdo that it's not gonna hurt any worse than I've already hurt myself as far as popularity goes.
There's another aspect to this whole resurgence thing that I think is important. We have become more and more divided in our society, right? And we hide behind the anonymity of Facebook and Twitter and all these things. And yet we still crave, I think, the connection. And what D&D provides for us, as well as board games, is getting together with a group of people that we become friends with. And it fills that social need we have. And it sort of breaks down some of that isolation and it brings us together. And I think that's pretty cool. And that's my old man rant.
Right. And also, this is another aspect of it that I think is pretty important that we bring up here, is that we have these awesome new tools for playing D&D, right? We have Fantasy Grounds and some other virtual tabletops we don't need to talk about.
Pants-free gaming, man. I think that should be our tagline.
Yeah, there you go. And it's like,
gaming.
and when it was, if you're playing in a local game, I mean, they're fantastic. They're wonderful. I mean, obviously, getting around with your friends and, getting a bunch of soda or beer or whatever it is, however you do it, and sitting at the table and rolling the dice is a fantastic experience that can never really be, topped or beaten because it's its own thing that is just wonderful. But I've got kids, a lot of us have kids, we've got jobs, we've got other stuff going on. And what Fantasy Grounds allows you to do is go home, take care of your kids, put them to bed, sit down, come down here to my little, one of my little man caves, and open up the computer and start playing D&D, which is fantastic. I couldn't, I've been in Japan now 13 years, and the largest period of my life that I didn't play D&D was as soon as I got here, up until I found Fantasy Grounds. And
that is the great thing about online gaming, is it opens up the I can game not only wherever, whenever, because of internet access, but you can game with whoever because You're not limited by the space around you. And I've met loads of people, both virtually and in person, that's like, man, it's so hard to find a group. There's no comic book areas or no gaming shops near me, and I don't know any local gamers. How do I meet them? How do we do it? And we get tons of emails and comments about that. And when you get onto a group that has a presence, whether Fantasy Grounds, you've got the ability to be like, okay, well, this guy's over in Europe, this guy's in Japan, this guy's in America, and that guy's in Australia. All right, let's do this.
And then there's 20 guys in Texas for some reason. I don't know what it is, but there's like half the people I know from Texas. It's so weird.
All right. So one thing, a few things I wanted to mention was not just as Fantasy Grounds allowed me to connect with others, but it's also allowed me to teach younger people about it. And also Dungeons & Dragons itself actually allowed me to help people when they were younger. And I didn't know it till, I got older, till I was an adult. But I have a best friend, and I love him to death, and I haven't heard from him in a while. But he does tell me to this day, he's thankful that I introduced him to the game because it helped him with his speech problems, his confidence, his math, his reading, his writing.
Yeah.
So all those things are part of what motivated me to stay with this genre. And not to mention, I get to meet all kinds of interesting people from all over the world that have skills above and beyond the game itself. We have professionals, we have teachers, we have skilled laborers, we have everything. And so when I interview these people, or I try to abduct them into our FGC, I ask them these questions indirectly, like, hey, if you have any other skills, I'd like to know about it. Like, you're an artist, sculptor, whatever. I like to hear about that stuff too. So it isn't just about the game, it's about the people too.
Yeah, it's building a community,
And we've come across that with Nerdarchy, just the sheer diverse professions that people have, and it's not like the age old, oh well, it's just college students who are looking for something to pass the time. I literally game in-house with a doctor. We've got fans that are lawyers, that are all over the professional, like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah, it really is.
It blows my mind at times.
Yeah, I told you before, I ran that table for my son and his friends when they were in high school. And it was, from my perspective, right, it was a great opportunity to get them to use their brains, not zone into a video game. And then, I introduced some girls to the table so that they could learn to socialize with them, right? And not be freaked out about, oh my gosh, because when you're in your 13s, when you're in your early teens, right, girls are scary. And I'm sure that from the girl side, it's like guys are scary because they're weird. They smell funny and they do strange things, But to get them into a neutral environment was great. And they all came back and said, that was so much fun. And I really thought it was great. We one of them became a philosophy major. The other one has a band in the Northwest. And so they're all over the place doing great. And they all look back to that as a great time in their lives. And so do I.
My table that I've it's moved from house to house as we've gamed in different locations. The only time I've ever gamed with more than one female at the table was during my college days when we were gaming on campus, and I had such a plethora of role players at my college that it was fantastic. And we did introduce it to more, so that one point in time we had 13 players in one game, and I think 3 or 4 of them were girls, and it was great. Had never really had that exposure, that experience before. So it is great to see that more and more gender diversity is happening within the gaming.
Definitely. Yeah, I was running a character creation class for 2 girls recently, right? Well, one is a friend of ours from Australia, and like a friend of hers that she had brought in. And this kind of goes back to the video game situation too, because I was teaching her. She'd never played D&D. She'd heard about it, never played it at all. And some of the people that we teach, they're really well versed in 5e. They play it at home all the time and that kind of stuff. And it's like those people are pretty easy to teach because all you're really teaching is where the buttons are. Because when you first open up Fantasy Grounds, it can be like you can get like just option paralysis. It's such a powerful piece of software. It does so much that when you open it up, it's kind of like opening up Linux or something like that for the very first time. And you're just like, whoa, there's so much going on here. I don't even know what buttons to click on. So our character creation class is supposed to bring people through that phase to where like you can build a character, you can get into a simple combat, you can roll, figure out how to roll the dice and make that stuff happen. So I was explaining these concepts to her and like, how hit points work. And she said, of course I know what hit points are. And I'm like, it was invented by D&D. Like, I know that you've run into experience points. I know that you've run into hit points before, but this is from D&D, damn it. Like this comes from 1971, was it? Or whatever it was, Chainmail came out. But, and like so many concepts that, you would think it's like, well, this is going to be brand new for someone who's never played D&D before. It's totally not, because of course, like every single aspect of this game has been copied by other people, in the video game industry, right? Like like so many video games, like that's how they were born, was essentially let's play D&D with a computer. But now we can actually play D&D with a computer, which is fantastic.
Yeah, this is D&D and even online gaming as a rule is like one of those things. Is like you've heard of the idea whose time has come, right? This is kind of it. D&D was it back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, and now the tabletop revolution, I think, is really taking it to the next level.
Yeah, and it's not just D&D, of course. Pathfinder, Fate, and the Savage Worlds is something. Actually, after D&D 5e, the thing that I play the most with Fantasy Grounds is definitely Savage Worlds. I do Deadlands sometimes. It's awesome.
Okay, RPG, role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games.
Yeah, but I mean, we tend to default to D&D because that's what got us all into it. It was the first, it was the biggest, the best, like that kind of thing. But it's definitely not just that. Fantasy Grounds can be used for literally any tabletop, experience. If there isn't a rule set that's an official rule set out there, you can build them custom. So you can put in Burning Wheel or whatever.
Somebody asked, way back in the early of the chat, we have a game that runs once a week on our channel for Marvel Phase Rip, and all that is percentile dice. So
Nice.
Is that something that the Fantasy Grounds offers, or is that would that be easy to incorporate?
I don't know if they. Oh, it can totally be incorporated. Absolutely. I'm not sure if there's an official license set for it though. What was that?
There isn't. You'd probably be running through the core RPG option in Fantasy Grounds, which is basically D20 rule set.
Okay.
And the D10, you right-click it. It does have percentile option.
Cool.
Yeah, one of the games I'm playing, it's 5e, but he's doing initiative with 1.0, and it's totally throwing me off when I'm playing other 5e games because I'm like, okay, I have to roll a certain dice for my size class, a certain dice for the type of attack, and for movement. I'm like, that's a lot of initiative right there. And of course, the lower the initiative roll is the first one, and then the higher the initiative roll is the last one. I'm like, yeah, that's just throwing me off since I didn't start, ever looking at first edition or second edition. I got started in 3.5 where it was a little bit more more adding to shit, but not crazy tables. And people tell me about 2.0 and THACO. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I mean,
two-hit armor class 0.
Yeah, THACO was one of those things from back in the day. I'm going to take a quick break here, guys. This is our typical halfway point for those that are watching. We do a shout out. So if you want to say where it is you're watching / listening in from in the chat, we'll take a couple minutes and then we'll continue our chat. But then while you guys are doing that, I'll come back to it and do a sound off, read off where it is. So if you guys want to,
I know,
continue with that
earlier. We gotta love our Texas people.
Well, I did mention that.
Yeehaw for Texas.
We're overrepresented in Texas.
Slightly. So, what were we talking about? I'm lost. I'm confused now.
Old systems, THACO. How nobody does.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah. So with Fantasy Grounds, right, you've got the core RPG rule set, which just allows you to build anything that off of a kind of basic D20 system. But you can also build custom rule sets. That's kind of above my pay grade. I haven't gotten into that personally yet. But you can take any old game system that you want or anything that's out there, and you can play it in Fantasy Grounds one way or the other. A certain amount of automation won't be implemented unless you build the rule set yourself and do that stuff. But you can do it. So like if you've got an entirely percentile based system operating, kind of as a map / image sharing service with, so a certain amount of bookkeeping. Because this is something that I say a lot in my character creation classes is that Fantasy Grounds isn't a game, right? The game we're playing is D&D or Pathfinder or Savage Worlds or whatever. Fantasy Grounds is bookkeeping software, really, at the end of the day. It's just really, really powerful bookkeeping software for doing this one thing, and that is playing tabletop games. So, how much automation you want is based, is kind of up to you. Even if you're playing D&D, 5e, you can ignore a certain amount of it if you think that, it automates it, but that's not for me. I'd rather do theater of the mind stuff, or I'd rather, handle it kind of, by hand. Or if you're mixing a group, so you've got one guy who had to go off to college and, he's in a different state, and he's the only one logging in remotely, and you're doing everything else at the table, then you can just use it as a map and, to get his die rolls and that kind of thing handled. And everything else can just be done pen and paper. So it's really just, it's like you opt in rather than, opt out, kind of, I guess, is the idea. As little as you want with it. It's really, really nice.
Nice. All right, so I'm gonna do this this quick read through. We got Fraginator in Redmond, Washington. We got Rob in Spokane, Washington. Zerift Gaming in New Mexico, Rhett Bruck in Texas. We got Do Stuff in Denmark. We got Victor in Zurich, Switzerland. Jose Suarez in Tampa, Florida. Comrade in City of Sin, Lynn, Massachusetts. Chris Mahoney in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Town, PA with Arbor. We got Chose in Wales. Horace Wild in New Providence, the Bahamas. John in Corpus, Texas. We got Shallender in New Mexico. We got John in Jackson, Florida. Oh, crap, it jumped. No, always does this to me.
Well, I heard some of our friends' names in there. I know Chaz and Victor are some buddies of ours.
Bear with me a second.
Okay.
Got to give a shout out to the Fantasy Grounds College crew listening in.
No doubt.
All right, so we got Brutman in Canada. This is killing me here, guys. Daniel's apparently in the Underdark. We always have somebody chiming in from Faerun somewhere. We got Fury Fate in Portland, Texas. We got Troy, another Texas. Geek and Undies in Ohio. War Eagle Keep in Arkansas. We got Kentucky. We got Colorado. We got Germany, Florida, Wilmington, North Carolina. All right, so sorry about that, guys.
Awesome.
It's all good. That's fantastic.
It always jumps.
So
awesome. Doing this.
We also we get a lot of support from outside the college, and I have to mention that because some of that support was actually the initial inspiration for the college as well, as besides my past. So we have individuals that make stuff, that stream, that do all kinds of fancy, fun stuff with Fantasy Grounds, and they support the college now, and they actually recognize the value in it. And I know a lot of people give me grief over this, but my father that I never had was probably Rob 2E, and also the Digital Dungeon Master was like a brother I never had. And GeoQuester is definitely becoming one of my favorite streamers as well, because he's actually sponsoring a lot of our students and our friends, and we all kind of try to cross promote and help each other. So those are definitely people that I respect and that I care about, and I want to foster the college and their stuff as well. And I know that my other staff members or our other staff members have similar comments, so I will let them say their piece as well.
On the chat, Rob just said he's crying right now with happiness and joy. For the son he never had.
He has been quite prolific in the chat. Not only in what he's talking about, but in his love for FGC.
Nice.
Well, that is really great. Also, we have other streamers, like I guess Lazy Stooner is going to invite me to one of his games. It's going to be one of the first stream games that I've played in myself. So I don't want to just say, hey, I teach the stuff, but I never play. I mean, I actually try to occasionally. And, I put off my entire family for the whole summer, spring, right, and up till now for this. So I think it's time for me to relax a bit, kick back and play some games with you guys. And we're actually trying to plan some sort of staff game so that we can blow off some steam. And go ahead, guys. You can put in your input on that and take it away.
Fate, why don't you run for a few minutes here and because we haven't heard much from you, and so.
Gosh, okay, so I actually do play with GeoQuester. I'm an honorary Savage Maiden, which is kind of his whole all-girl group, and I got started with them, played with them, and I'm so excited to be part of now the streaming community, sort of honorary streaming community guest. Playing with these guys, these girls, and just having a lot of fun and making new friends. What else? What else do I need to do, right?
Yeah, I hear you. That's fun.
If I could, I would love to just quit my job and play games all day, but I have to pay bills.
Preaching to the choir. I think we could all agree with that.
Yep.
And we've had. Go ahead, Colin.
Oh, I was just going to say, as far as the streaming thing goes, I play a lot of games with Duff from Predator's Rejects. He does a Twitch stream. I think he's got 5 games a week that he does. He's on he's on Twitch like all the time, and he helped a lot at the beginning, giving us shout outs and stuff as well to bringing people in. He's just a really, really great guy, and another one of us from Texas, or one of our crew from Texas. Yeah, I definitely got to give him a shout out because he's my buddy.
So, is there anything that you guys would like to do if you had either the hours, the dollars? What would you like to do with FGC that you can't do now, but it's like a dream to make happen?
I think I would like to do community outreach, because I've been looking into that for the college, and I really like the idea of using Dungeons and Dragons to help children and people that are having social issues and they can't communicate properly, or they don't get the friendships that they need to create their social skills. So if I was to do this for myself, or even for a community, I would definitely want to do some sort of outreach.
So you could look into either middle schools or high schools, and you could start locally wherever you have the biggest, the biggest group of FGC people, and try to actually grow out that name to being beyond the actual digital medium that you guys are in, and move into a physical medium and say, okay, well, here's this thing that we're going to offer up. And if you keep the name the same, you can and it works here, offer it out to the next town over, or see if you can get another group of people to start that up somewhere else, and just try to grow it that way. Have you thought about that?
I sure have, and I've talked to Wheelhouse Workshop, and they're here in Seattle. I live close to Renton, so I'm really close to the stuff.
Okay.
And I'm actually going to try to set up a meeting with them soon, and I want to see what they're doing and kind of try to dovetail from there.
Nice.
And yep, so that's one of my hopes and dreams for the college and for myself and the community.
I've tried to foster as much as I can. I know that I've shared role playing with my family. I have a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, and kind of hidden behind me over here is the No Thank You Evil, which I got for Christmas last year, because it's a system that is supposed to be really good for young kids. Is fantastic, but it's not anything that my 5-year-old is going to be able to deal with. So it's like, well, if I can get them exposed to this, then the love can start early. Within the past month or so, my son who's 9 now, has expressed more interest in what it is that I do, has expressed more interest in D&D, and he's actually made his first character, and he really enjoyed the character creation process, but we haven't had a chance to sit down and actually game yet. So I'm trying to grow it that way beyond what I'm actually doing, with Nerdarchy.
That's
for
great.
The wider community.
Right. That's really cool.
And in that same vein, over the what was it, 2 weeks ago, there was a Fantasy Grounds convention. It's like a Fantasy Grounds virtual convention, where over the weekend, anybody who had any paid version could run a game for anybody, regardless. It basically gave everybody who had Fantasy Grounds the same as the Ultimate license, which allows you to run games for people who have the demo license. And they had a bunch of events and games set up. And I ran a game. It was a third-party publisher called Playground Adventures that was designed for kids 6 and up. The game that I ran was called A Friend in Need. It was based. It's kind of a Japanese themed game. That's why I chose that one. And they also have like Pixies on Parade and some other really cool modules aimed at kids. And it was fun. It was so much fun to play with, a kid who's really into it and has a dad who just very similar to the situation you're explaining, where their dad is really into it and they kind of want to know, but it's a little difficult to run a game for your own kids when they're that age, because they're used to getting what they expect out of you. And if their character dies or gets dropped to 0 hit points, but can I re-roll that 1 die, please, or something? And it's hard to say, no, kid, you're my son, and I'm going to kill you now. And I am totally fine with killing your kids, right? In D&D. So I was, I ran the game, and at one point I knocked this kid down to 0 hit points with a creature, and he handled it like a trooper. He was like, all right, that's what happens. I'm like, don't worry about it. You got a cleric in the party. It's not over yet. And he was fine. He didn't cry. He was totally cool with it. And then it came around to the cleric's turn, and they healed him up. And the kid was like, okay, I'm over this fight. Magic missile this dude. And okay, he was almost that dude with his first two magic missiles, and the other guy who was almost dead already. He sent the third one to, and he knocked him down. And it was like he was ecstatic. He was like, man, I thought I was gonna die, and the very next turn I killed 2 of these dudes. And it was like, yeah, the D&D is awesome, man. And it was fantastic. It was a really, really great experience. So I want to do more of that kind of stuff too. But and the dragon here, you did the same thing with your kids. How old were your kids when you started teaching them D&D?
So my oldest son was in middle school when he came home one day and asked me about the hippogriff, and I whipped out the old monster manual, and from that point on, he was hooked, and he took the games, and he and his friends were playing in class, and his teacher was like, I don't know what they're doing. I'm like, I'll take care of it. So
yeah. Did you ever happen to find out what prompted the what's a hippogriff?
Yeah.
And what did he see?
I was a horrible parent, and I made my son take Latin.
Wow. Was not expecting that answer, dude.
That's worse than having to take something else that I've taken.
Well, they had to take a year of it in middle school and 4 years of language in college, a foreign language in college. And I'm like, dude, we live in Texas. Spanish is widely used here, but let's take Latin because it'll help you out with your SATs and stuff like that. And they hated me for it, but
it's parenting. They're not supposed to love you.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. They're just supposed to play D&D with me.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. So we've collected a little bit of information since we started the college. We have a general questionnaire. I just wanted to share a few general things. Basically, we're not trying to market or do anything like that. We just use it to help build our curriculum better. And some of the things we've noticed is most of our demographic here is late 30s and up. So I would say 50% of the people that have filled that out have been in that age group. And I can tell by the questions they answer. I didn't ask, how old are you? I just asked, how long have you been playing? What genres you're familiar with? That sort of thing. And that gives me a pretty good idea of how long they've been playing.
So anybody who knows AD&D has been around for a couple of years.
Oh, yeah. And then also there's male-female ratio. It's roughly 10% to 90. That's just how that goes.
Pretty standard.
That's actually bigger than what I was told. I thought we were closer to 3 to 5%, female.
Right.
Well,
so our data is still young.
Yeah, but and also because Fantasy Grounds College is all about teaching people who have quite often have never played D&D. They're
now sounding ages off in the chat.
Nice. Yeah, and so we get I think people who were maybe always interested in it but didn't have anywhere to play or didn't know how to break into it. Maybe they didn't know anybody locally, and I think that our male female ratio is probably a little bit better than the wider community because of that, because we're specifically teaching and it's a safe place to come and learn. If you don't know anything, you're totally I have no idea how to role play, I have no idea how to do this, it's we've got you covered, it's all good. And because of that, I think that our ratios are a little bit better.
And so for the ladies, I actually ask them in private. I say, hey, develop a safe phrase or a safe word for me. And if I hear that, then that means I need to pay attention and do a little moderation in my game or in the chat so that way they're more comfortable. And if somebody's being bothersome, we can take them aside and say, hey, please don't do that.
Which I haven't used it yet.
Very good.
No, but it has come up. It's unfortunate, but yeah, sometimes. And so far, we haven't had to take anybody to task too far. It's just say, hey, listen, not everybody's down for the raunchy humor, and things can often get a little weird when a girl hops in and they start making jokes that they normally wouldn't make. And it's nice to say, hey, listen, that's not always the coolest thing. But our community is pretty mature. I think so far it's only happened one time, right?
Yeah, I haven't had any problems.
Was getting a little weird.
Yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
had any real problems.
That's
That's
really
'cause-
good to hear.
It's because I have
In
I have a wooden switch in the backyard that I take the guys out
Yep.
behind the outhouse, and we have a conversation.
Yeah, you don't want to
Board of
piss off
Education.
Bubba Dragon.
No.
Board of Education. I like that.
We've been fortunate here at Nerdarchy that very rarely do we ever have to deal with crappy comments or anything that has gotten too far. And we used to have like, okay, every so often somebody would come on and we would just kick them out of the live chat and voila, problem solved.
Yeah.
But most of the time, the people who are coming here to this community, they're amazing, they're awesome. We've cultured something that is great to share. So it's we enjoy sharing our community with all the other groups and fan bases that are out there. So I'm really hoping that some of our fans will come check out Fantasy Grounds College and get whatever you can offer them.
So I would like to. Oh, sorry. I would like to also explain how exactly our Discord works and how you sign up for classes and that. So Vishera and Colin could actually do that better, and I'll let Vishera speak, and then Colin can follow up with his comments.
So we tried making it as easy as possible to join the college. Really, like if you just go to the website, which is fantasygroundscollege.net, there's a big old Discord link that says join us here. Click on that, and it'll take you right to our Discord server. And we have plenty of staff there that are sort of door greeting, and they always make sure everybody's needs are met. They'll have a question like, hey, I'm here to learn this, or I want to find a game or whatever. There's always somebody there who's going to answer any questions you have. But it's a really easy process. Somebody just click on the link and it'll throw you right over there to our Discord. And Colin, if you got anything to touch on that.
Yeah, so to do the sign up and how that works. So
It's important to note that we are more about inclusion than anything else, and it's a group of people getting together to help each other. And I started getting involved with this for purely selfish reasons, right? I wanted to get involved with nerds and do those things. So did we lose?
Yeah, and so maybe, but yeah. So did he drop out? That's weird.
So they're still live though.
Yeah, it says we're still live. So yeah, and the assumption that Ted just dropped out for some reason. When you first log into the Discord server, somebody will usually if there's a professor available, they'll just ask, hey, what time zone are you in? What are you looking to learn? And we've got there he is. We've got hey Ted.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but it kicked me out of the own chat. So please continue.
Too much foul language from you, young man.
Oh, really?
No, not at all. But anyway, yeah. So I was just going through the way that it typically works. Is that someone will hop into the Discord. We'll try and greet them. If we see them hop in, we'll say, hey, nice to meet you. What are you looking to learn? What time zone are you in? That kind of thing. And there's two main ways that we handle classes. We either schedule them. That's the way that we're supposed to do it. I'm not the best at that myself. And we schedule them a couple days in advance to give people time to say, hey, we're going to teach this class this day and this class that other day. Because I like to just log in whenever I have time, like any day, and just find somebody to play with. I tend to kind of take it the other way, where I just hop in, at least, I try to make it at least once a day or whatever, and say, what do you guys want to learn right now? Who's on? What do you want to do? You want to do character creation? You want to learn combat? Do you want to do exploration? Layron said earlier, we're doing Dungeon Master classes, and I'm working on a basic role-playing curriculum as well. So you come in, and the one thing that we ask, from the players is to change your nickname in the Discord server to add your UTC code, your Universal Time Code. So it's very similar to GMT, but GMT has daylight savings, so it gets a little weird. But basically, you know, I'm in Japan, so I'm +9, and if you're in the East Coast, I think it's -4. And that just lets us know, you know, what time zones you're generally going to be in, so you know we can hook you up with the right teacher. And then you hop in, and you know, just one of us will you either go into the chat window or the chat in Discord that is the class you want. So we have like a character creation chat, and we have a combat 101 chat and an exploration chat, and put your name in there and say this is something I'm interested in. And the professors can then look through that and find you and say, hey, if you let me know when you've got time. Or you can go into the class planner and see what classes are planned or definitely going to be happening. Or just stick around, you know, like you know, if you're on, you know, throughout the day, a professor will most likely hop in eventually and say, you know, I'm ready to run classes. What do you guys want to learn? And you can just let us know directly then, and then hop in.
That happens
so
often
typically
too.
how it's handled.
Yeah,
I
we do a lot
I
of
do that a
improvement.
lot.
We'll get some.
Yeah.
So
I try to do that quite a lot.
Thank you,
We're
Colin.
getting
That
down
was
to
awesome.
we're getting
Okay.
down to the last couple minutes. Is there anything else that you want to go
Oh, yeah.
over, want to say, want to pitch?
Yep. So the first thing I want to pitch is the Women in Gaming seminar. We mentioned that earlier. It's at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time in our Discord server. It's going to be hosted by none other than the Susie Q. And we're going to have some special guests there, probably some names that you've seen out there in the streaming community and whatnot, content creators, things like that. And also, I wanted to mention our Explorers Guild that we're launching this weekend. We got 2 smart individuals working on that. And basically, those are a bunch of one-shot West Marches style games, or just a bunch of ad hoc one-shot games in a semi-persistent world. It's kind of a sandbox situation. And we call that the Explorers Guild. So that sign up is also on our website. So if you guys want to start learning first and then playing, that'd be great. If you already know how to play, go ahead and sign up. But we actually would like it if you took at least one class, and then you can sign up. But it's not required. It's just something that we would hope for. And also, I want to say thank you to Nerdarchy. I am a fan, by the way. And I do watch your show when I can, every other day or so. I don't watch it daily, but I do watch it when I can. So I really appreciate you hosting us, and also to the people that support us out there in the World Wide Web. And anybody else have anything to say, go ahead.
Yeah, Chris Perkins, if you're watching, I'd really love to play in one of your games.
Nice. You had to get that one out there, right?
I really did. I mean, it's you ask what we do if we could, right? That's it. That's my bucket list.
That's it. You play with Chris Perkins, right? Nice.
And I also want to give a shout out to my wife and children for putting up with me all summer long for ignoring them. So thank you very much, wife and children. And I hope to abduct my children into gaming as soon as possible.
How old are your kids?
They're old enough, but I'm not going to force them into playing because they're still in the video game stuff. But they're 11 and 13. 11 and 13.
Okay.
They're starting to. Yeah, they're starting to look. Believe me.
Right on, nice. There's one other streamer actually that I need to give a shout out to. He's actually like one of my favorite streamers. I can't believe I forgot him because he's probably the most important one. And he's the only streamer I've actually played in a stream with. And that's Vishera right here. He does behind the DM screen. And yeah, you said that you earlier like you've only been in like one other game, and it was his, and he's right here with us.
Yep, Vishera's awesome. You got to check out his artwork, and he's actually a key member here. So I really appreciate what he's doing here, and I look forward to working with him more.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my live streaming a little more frequent here soon, so look forward to that.
Right on. Well, you just got a good plug, so
you can always reach out back to us, and maybe we'll have you on as a one-on-one kind of live chat as opposed to just being part of a Fantasy Grounds College.
Totally down.
Perfect.
So it looks to be about that time. Thank all of you for I thank all of you for being on here and sharing all of your stuff with our wonderful audience. I thank everyone for watching / listening. Great chat that's just been flowing for the past hour. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And until next time.
Thanks for having us.
Stay nerdy.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Right, bye.